Hello and welcome to another Wild Earth Travel presentation. Today we will be travelling the Isles of French Polynesia. And French Polynesia is actually one of our favourite little hotspots we have here at Wild Earth Travel. We have over 40 itineraries and over 10 different vessels that we can, small ship vessels that we can put people aboard. I will hand over to my colleague, the lovely Sarah Porter, who is a partnership manager based here in New Zealand, who's recently come back from a trip in French Polynesia.
Iorana, thank you, Nissa. Yes, I am just recently back from French Polynesia. I've got my tan still, I hope, got my Gauguin hat on, got my pearl around my neck. And honestly, I can't rave enough about the incredible voyage and adventure that we had in French Polynesia. So lucky enough to head over on the voyage that is known as the Tomatoes and Society Islands, leaving and coming back into Papeete. So it was 10 nights aboard. The bonus of this is we actually got to experience 8 different islands. I didn't actually realise, I'd been to French Polynesia a couple of times, to Moorea and Bora Bora, but there's so much variety within French Polynesia. And it's actually, the whole region is bigger than Europe. So to be able to experience that diversity and that whole thing about being on a ship, you know, you can go back to the same pillow, you unpack once, but to get to the chance to experience 8 different islands was absolutely wonderful. Gauguin is gorgeous. She's quite different to the other vessels in the Ponant fleet. Ponant only bought her sort of in recent years, but she's a bit of an institution and has a legacy in French Polynesia. I just found her so suited to the destination, but had all those Ponant touches that just make it quite exceptional. Now, here's a bit of a deck plan. Don't get too complicated. I know it's quite small, but, you know, she's just over 150 metres in length, 330 passengers maximum on board. I think we travelled with sort of just under 300, but over 200 crew. So you've got some dedicated decks, which are just for accommodation, as well as having the facilities on board as well, which I'm going to touch on. Now, the cabins are gorgeous, really well appointed. I would highly recommend always looking at that balcony level category. Sitting out there, look, most mornings as we sailed into these amazing atolls and bays, I was in my pajamas on the deck with a coffee, watching the world, watching us glide into these amazing destinations. So it is one of those destinations that it's definitely worth considering the balcony, because you are definitely going to use it. So the standard cabins are a great size, plenty of space, great bathrooms, bath, even in the bath. Not that I had a bath, but again, great place to put all your wet togs and things. And there are some different suite levels on board as well. As far as the common areas, awesome. The top deck has a beautiful swimming pool with salt water, seawater in it, which is gorgeous, but lots of areas if you do want to lie in the sun or if you do want the shade, there's options there as well. There's 3 restaurants on board, which is awesome. There's 4 different bar areas, research purposes. I had to test them all out, but lots of different spaces and areas where you can kind of find yourself curling up with a book. If you want to socialise with people that you've met through the voyage, absolutely, it's easy enough to do that, but great spaces where you can just find yourself in a little hidey hole and with a book, perhaps a cocktail, and take yourself away. So I'm just going to take you through my voyage. We started in Papeete. We were on that flight that arrived sort of late in the evening, so we had a full day the next day. Look, Papeete, there's not a huge amount to do in Papeete, I'll be honest. Great place to buy a pearl, that's for sure. Amazing restaurants. They are blimmin' expensive. Another reason to be on board a small vessel. But with the second day, we actually took our boys were with us, 17 and 19, and we did a really cool dirt bike, sort of, you know, quad bike tour. You're not boarding the vessel until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I highly recommend making the most and doing sort of an activity, spending maybe one day in town, having a nosy round and buying your pearl. But also there's some great activities that you can head off and do like we did. Then, of course, we boarded our beautiful Gauguin, really easy boarding. We had actually just stayed at a hotel directly across the road. So literally just picked up the suitcases and walked across the road. They board in a really leisurely way, and of course you then arrive in your cabin where you've got wonderful, time to unpack before you sail away that evening. The first couple of days we spent at Whakarava. Now, it did take a bit of time getting there, so it was great time in the morning to have a look around the vessel, get used to the different areas, go and spend some time on the bridge, and we had a wonderful lecturer on board who sort of gave us some history of the region. Whakarava is an incredible little atoll. It's tiny, but it's just gorgeous when you actually cruise into the sort of the middle of the atoll. The afternoon we got off, we had no pre-booked excursions that afternoon, and the girls at the travel concierge desk were really good. They said, look, get off the ship and go and just hire the local bikes. So we hired a few of these bikes and we went to a private beach that Paul Gauguin had set up for us. And it was just a wonderful way to sort of enjoy a swim in the ocean, a bit of a snorkel, and have a nosy round in our own time. So Whakarava, I also did a dive there the following morning, which was absolutely gorgeous as well. I'll touch on the scuba diving later because that is a bit of my thing. That evening, we had the captain's dinner. So don't forget to pack one pretty frock if you're a female. You don't have to get too dressy. Remember, it is a bit relaxed, but it is quite nice dressing up for the captain's dinner. And there was a bit of entertainment that evening with our rather tall 19-year-old doing the local haka. The next day we arrived in Rangiroa. Again, another incredible atoll. Beautiful. We sort of sailed into the middle of this incredible atoll, and it's just beautiful doing so. We got off the vessel and look, to be honest, there wasn't a huge amount around there. We went for a bit of a walk, but we found a most beautiful beach just by the jetty where we had some great snorkeling and some time out in the sun, just relaxing.
Lovely. And what type of temperatures were you having there?
30 degrees every day, no rain, and the water temperature was 27 degrees.
Oh, it was beautiful.
It was blimmin' awesome. As I mentioned just briefly, my son, all our family scuba dive, but husband and oldest son aren't that into it, whereas my younger one's really, really loving it. So we booked in for 6 dives over the whole time of the voyage. They were amazing. Trust me, I've dived probably over 200 times all around the world, and these 6 dives would be in my top 20 dives. The diversity was incredible. The team on board were awesome, and it just makes the diving so easy. You know, you can do something in the morning and do a night dive in the afternoon, or you can do a double dive in the morning like we did on a couple of places, and then you've got the afternoon free. But it's amazing because you kind of just step off the rib, you know, the back of the boat, you're all well equipped. And we had everyone. We had people doing tri dives. You've got more experienced divers. The dive team are really good at kind of, figuring out what level you're at, and then catering the dive accordingly. So
you do need a little bit of experience.
You need to be certified if you want to do the actual proper diving, but you can do a tri dive. One gentleman from Switzerland, he was on board with his daughter, and he was a diver. So we met him the first couple of days, and we managed to convince his daughter to do a tri dive. And she actually absolutely loved it. So it's quite nice because she's going to go back to Switzerland, get her certification, and then, father and daughter can go on diving adventures like Lockie and I did. But the good thing about it was sort of like a half day, whether you do one dive or whether you do 2 dives in the morning. So it just gave us the flexibility that we could then do other things. And while we were diving, my husband and my other son were doing different things. But it's a great diving, and the dive sites are absolutely awesome. You know, I'm talking sharks, dolphins, manta ray, stingray, eagle ray, turtles galore, all really diverse, but they certainly, I think it's a really lovely pace in which you're diving, and they're taking you to really good dive sites, so you know that they're all going to be really, really high quality. So, we tended to find that we'd go a dive in the morning or what have you, and then happier, the afternoon, the evening, on the lounger with my limoncello spritz, It's quite strenuous when you're scuba diving. So we sort of fell into this pattern. We would sort of do half a day of activity and then enjoy the vessel, enjoy those magical sunsets, and enjoy the company of each other and also the other travellers on board. Huahine was our next stop. Again, the diversity. Suddenly we're in this lush, beautiful island. And it's so different to the first two stops, which were coral atolls, but you sort of feel like you're kind of heading into that more like jungle-like French Polynesia that it's known for. We got off, and Gauguin, they actually had a bus organised that took you into town. It was a Sunday, so not much happening in town, but we did find the local yacht club where we had a Hanano beer, which is kind of like what you have to do. But it was just lovely because there were, local kids jumping off the wharf, and you sort of felt like you were sort of immersing yourself with that natural sort of culture and social side of things as well. We had these gorgeous kids. That top photo, they couldn't speak a word of English. I'm not very good with French, but we managed to teach them how to, communicate that they were going to do manus, and bombs off the wharf. But suddenly they were in their element because, at the time there were about 40 of us waiting for the tender, and they had this great audience, clapping and cheering as they were doing backflips off the jetty. So it's moments like that are just really authentic. And you're sort of stepping into the culture, you're stepping into the community, but in a really immersive, natural way. As far as family time, we really enjoyed the fact that we could sit there and enjoy, the boys, let's be honest, they often miss breakfast because they're teenage boys, they sleep in, but having lunches together on the deck, and the crew were really attentive, the restaurant staff and the waiters and that, they'd know if the boys had been in or not, they'd know if we needed a table of 2 or 4. And at dinner time, there's different restaurants on board. We loved the vibe in the main restaurant. And quite often we said, look, we'll sit at a bigger table. And, we met some incredible, fun people that sort of make, for us, we're quite social, and we sort of make the voyage even more memorable. So, coming together at meal times for us as a family was really, really neat. That day, I remember that day clearly because it was the first time I'd seen my eldest son, because Lockie and I had been diving. Hayden and Isaac had been doing other things, and I was like, oh, hey, how was your day? So it's really neat to be able to do things as a family, but also have your own adventures. Now, Bora Bora, look, it's probably the most popular, the most famous, the most picturesque place in French Polynesia, and it didn't under-deliver. Oh my God, it was amazing. One of the excursions that I highly recommend, we did a lagoon tour that included a sort of island lunch with it. Maui, the guy with the ukulele and not much else on, he was our host, and he was just awesome, like such a cool personality. Our first stop, we jumped in the water with manta ray. To be honest, the visibility wasn't great. There were quite a few people, but hey, we still got to see manta ray, which was pretty unique. Next stop, we got to a lagoon which was just filled with reef sharks and stingrays, which was just, you can see there where I've got my arms up, there's reef sharks all around me. This is when I wish I had an underwater camera. It was just awesome. And, even our boys who are scuba divers, and they said that was one of the best, things that they could do. They then took us to a coral garden for some more snorkeling, and then we arrived on a private island where they had prepared lunch, kind of like New Zealand hangi, but they go through the whole process, and the food was divine. It was so cool too, because they sort of present it in leaves of your plate. You've only got your fingers to eat. A few of the Americans didn't quite like that, but us Kiwis roll our sleeves up. But we had lobster, we had fresh fish, and then they offer you French champagne. It's kind of like those Penant touches, but really authentic, really, really authentic. So you're there drinking French champagne in a paper cup, eating lobster with your fingers. But, in Maui, the guy, he's playing the ukulele in the background. But again, it's one of those days that we just would do in a heartbeat. And it was one of the things that Tamasa in our team, she did this when she went. And it's those inside trips, it's knowing the excursions that are the must-do ones in the islands where you can kind of do your own thing. So again, we were on this outrigger, and there's Maui at the end imposing for us. it's quite funny. There were a few ladies on, and he would actually turn around, and because his little sarong was only a G-string at the back. So the okay version. There's a few restricted photos that I won't share. These were some of the professional photos that came out. This was when we were swimming with the manta ray and the sharks, and again the visibility was just amazing.
Yep.
So the next day, Lockie and I decided to do a double dive, which was awesome. In the morning, one dive we saw a manta ray. The next dive we saw so many eagle ray. It was just magical. And there was actually an American who was diving with us, and he said to Lockie, "You don't know how lucky you are." He said, "I've done over 500 dives all over the world, and this dive was in my top 5." And I was, it's just things like that. I just realised how special it is. And we had a dive guide with just Lockie and I, and we were able to stay down there a bit longer, and we certainly maximised our time. So I can't rave enough about the diving. While we were diving, Hayden, I don't think Hayden actually got to drive the jet ski, but they did a jet ski circumnavigation of Bora Bora, which was cool. They said that was a huge highlight for them. They got to jump off and do some snorkeling, but of course, put a 19-year-old on a jet ski with Dad hanging on the back. It was certainly, they had fun too. And again, that evening, it was the white night. You're sailing away from Bora Bora as the sun's setting on that beautiful, beautiful motu in the mountain. That night, there was one of the entertainers on board was a magician. And honestly, you can see my concentration on my face. He would come through the bar area and do these like card tricks and things. And I don't like not knowing. I had to crack him. And it was amazing. Like, it was better than Vegas. Wow. And so, he did that a few nights, and he actually did a couple of shows. But, not what you expect. Penang do entertainment, light entertainment. But honestly, he was better than Vegas. He'd actually been an X Factor over in Europe. But it was insane. And I cannot tell you how he did those tricks. Even with, we actually befriended a 25-year-old physics teacher from Australia, Harry, and he was with us. I was like, "Harry, you're a physics teacher, come on." And we could not crack it. It was just such high quality. Wow. But again, these sail away moments where you sort of got this incredible vista. It's just those magical landscapes that French Polynesia is known for. Yeah. Our next island was Raiatea. Now, this is quite unique because it was one of the only 2 places where we actually pulled up alongside the dock, which was great because it kind of gave you that flexibility to just come on and off without having to use the tenders. Not that the tenders were ever an issue, but you kind of felt like you were right in the heart and soul of the town. That day, we actually booked the excursion to go out to a pearl farm with some snorkeling. It was amazing. I mean, I could spend an hour talking to you about pearl cultivation. But, you can see in that middle photo, the guy's actually there, cultivating the pearls, and it's quite a science behind it. I mean, honestly, he might as well be doing open heart surgery. He was just so precise. And it was on this gorgeous little, sort of shack floating out there. Well, not floating, but on stilts in the ocean. But having the opportunity to really engage. There were only, 10 people in our group, which is another good thing when you do these excursions. It's not everyone off the vessel. Really engaged. We had the owners go through everything. We had the chance to really understand that cultivation process. And then we got to snorkel there, which was really, really neat. Again, these are professional photos, better than mine. But, Tahiti, French Polynesia is known for the black pearls, so it's great to get that insight and that understanding. Oh, that night we ate at the fanciest restaurant, and they brought out what is a favourite thing with Penang, the cheese trolley. And it was just, it's little things like that. Well, they're not little. Look how much cheese is on my plate. But it's those Penang touches where you just feel like, it's that real 5-star, amazing food, which is something why I probably need to go to the gym a bit more now that I'm home. Another highlight for us was also the travel concierges on board, local Tahitian ladies, and they would always give you an insight into where you were going next. They'd go through all the different excursions on offer, but they'd also tell you if you wanted to do stuff independently, they'd give you really, really sound advice. So, when you're going on these voyages, it does pay to be a little bit organised, but also have that flexibility to go, oh, hey, actually, I like the sound of that, or we can do things independently, or what have you. So they're not trying to upsell you all the time or have you, but all the excursions are done by outside operators. They're not done by Paul Gauguin. So they're quite unbiased in a way, but they give you a really good insight each day before you head to that next destination. So Taha was our next stop. Now, I'd been given the inside word not to book any excursions, and I highly recommend it because Paul Gauguin take you to a private island.
Wow.
And it is magical. Again, it's one of those moments, you walk off the jetty and you go, oh my gosh, I'm just in paradise. And I think by this stage, it was day 9, we're all kind of getting depressed because we know that we're getting off the vessel in a couple of days. But they set up, they have a floating bar. They have all the Gauguins and the Gauguins there with ukuleles. They have local vendors. We actually bought some really lovely things from the local craftsmen there. They do an awesome barbecue lunch. I mean, hey, it's burgers, but you can have burgers washed down with French champagne or fresh coconuts. And there was one moment where, one of the waiters was actually delivering drinks out to a bunch of these older American ladies who are out in the ocean. And it's by this stage, the crew and the staff have got to know, and all the waiters and that you can see there's just that real connection and an element of fun. It's really, really neat. So we found that day was really neat because by that stage we had lots of new travel buddies, and you're sort of there, swapping details and really sharing the adventures you've had. Our last stop was Moorea. We booked in for a couple more dives, which were probably our best dives. The first one, we saw so many turtles. We even had turtles following us around when we were trying to do our safety stop at the end. Like, I'm talking dozens. And the second dive, we saw a couple of really big sharks, which is what every 17-year-old boy wants to see. But again, diving, I can't rate it highly enough on Paul Gauguin. It's so easy. You can see there the back marina deck. They've got amazing gear. It's so easy. You step into the rib. You're often at the dive site within 5 minutes, and you just come off the boat. You don't even have to take your gear off, all the dive gear out, and they look after things. So it's a really relaxed, and you feel quite spoiled. And one thing I had that day was the croque monsieur. Now, they have different buffets and different amazing food on board. It's like when you're in the same restaurant, it's like you're eating in a different restaurant every day. Every meal time is completely different. But they always have a standard menu you can choose from at breakfast and lunch. And I'd been eyeing up the croque monsieur with truffle fries. So it got to the last day and I was like, I've just got to try it. And yeah, definitely. I'm glad I didn't have it on the first day because I would have actually had it every day. But it was really neat. And while we were doing that dive, Hayden and Isaac chose to do a hike in 30-degree temperatures at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But they loved it. They were right up in the peaks of Moorea and got these spectacular views back of the island. And that was our last night. And that's the cruise director there in that beautiful floral dress, and of course our captain. And they did the most amazing sort of farewell on the pool deck. They got all the crew out, all the staff, the chefs, the housekeepers. And it was actually one of those things that you kind of feel a bit emotional because, your journey's coming to an end, but it was just such a connected, you felt really connected to the people and to the destination. And that evening, they actually brought a dance troupe on. We were back in port in Papeete, and one of the most award-winning dance troupes from French Polynesia came on board and did a performance. And it was just so authentic and just so, just wonderful, wonderful display of the beautiful culture on board. So that was my voyage. When it comes to Paul Gauguin, there are a few variations of the voyages. We did the 11-day one. There's an 8-day one. There's a 12-day one that takes in the Cook Islands. And there's a longer 15-day one that takes you all up to the Marquesas as well. So a lot of the time it might come down to time, how much time you've got. But you certainly, gosh, I could have easily stayed on and repeated the voyage and it would have been different, but equally as spectacular. You've also got a few unique voyages. When she goes over to Singapore to get her refit and things, you've got the opportunity to take her across the Pacific That's going, Fiji up to Indonesia, or backwards, and obviously Fiji through those other islands to Tahiti. So do keep them in mind. Something different on board that gorgeous vessel. And just be aware as well, Penant will also have Le Jacques Cartier in French Polynesia. So again, it will have those wonderful options for all those activities and excursions. I know that they also do diving on board that one as well.
And they're also going out to Pitcairn Island, even further afield, which is quite exciting.
But just, again, that different style of vessel being one of Penant's Explorer fleet. So my top tips, my takeaways, look, it really is the only way to do and see and experience French Polynesia. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I look at those overwater bungalows and, man, they're expensive. But B, you're kind of stuck in one place. So you think of this as your floating overwater bungalow where every day, to experience 8 islands in 10 days was phenomenal. And you've got all that variety, but you also know what you've paid for it with all your drinks and your dinners included. It does come out really, really cost effective when you do compare it to those overwater bungalows that are very expensive. Pre-book some of your activities and excursions, but do give yourself grace. You're in the most beautiful place. I think it's important to not run yourself ragged and just soak up the scenery and give yourself the time to have a bit of time out as well. It's ideal for families and intergenerational groups and things, looking at the diversity of the people on board our trip. One thing that made it, there was a group of Americans who worked together and, they'd love it because they'd go, oh, this is my round of drinks, It's actually about making those memories together, but it makes it easy and it simplifies things when you're going away as a group or an extended family and everything's included.
And Sarah, there are some interconnected cabins available, isn't there, on Paul Gauguin?
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of, diversity when it comes to the cabin configurations, as well as, there was one family on board, they were French, and they had a toddler with them. But gosh, everyone, the most spoiled toddler, the crew and the guests all just wanted to, but it was awesome. They had 2 sort of primary aged kids, and then they had this wee toddler, and it was just lovely to see them enjoying it. We had this guy, 25-year-old Harry, was with his mum. There's a lot of diversity. I mean, Roxy, who was 79 from Dallas, and the in the States, and she was giving everything a go, so there's definitely no age, there's definitely, it certainly caters for everyone, and I think it's because there's just so much freedom. You can choose to do activities, you can stay on the boat, even us as a family of 4, we didn't do everything together every day, all day, we did different things as it suited us.
Yeah, and also popular with solo travellers as well, with those no single supplement departures.
Absolutely. There were a few solo travellers and, we met a couple of them, they were divers. And so, before too long, we'd be having a meal with them or a drink with them. And, you sort of get that engagement. So it's perfect for solo travellers because they do amazing deals. But when you're on board, you kind of find your tribe, you find like-minded people. If you want to have breakfast on your own, go for it. But if you want to engage and spend time, with people, it's not like you're on a cruise ship with hundreds of people and you're seeing strangers every day. You sort of find your tribe.
Yeah, great.
Pre-cruise, definitely got some top tips as far as hotels and things, and it's great you do have that time to pre-book something in Papeete when you do board it at sort of 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Post-cruise, we're really lucky here in New Zealand. There is that early flight with Air Tahiti Nui, and you can disembark the ship and catch that 8:30 flight home. So it just saves you. I think sometimes when you get off a vessel, you just want to get home, unless, of course, you want to extend it. And good news for the Aussies, there's that direct flight from Sydney to Papeete coming soon as well.
Exciting.
So the unique selling points, just remember Paul Gauguin is part of the Penant fleet. So you do have those Penant bonuses. The earlier you book, the better discount you're going to get. You've also got that loyalty scheme. If you've travelled with them before, you do get rewarded. As Nissa and I just discussed, there's always a really good chance of no single supplement as well. And don't forget, you can use that, hey, you might be travelling with a friend and you just don't want to share a cabin. It means that you've got the flexibility of having your independent cabins, but enjoying the voyage together. Wild Earth Travel, we always have access to special offers, special benefits and things. So do come through to our team for that. Whatever's out there, we can offer. Often we get other exclusive offers as well with Pool Gauguin and Penant. So always just ask us. At the moment, we've got onboard credits available, which you can put towards, those excursions, or the spa. I didn't mention the spa. Best deep tissue massage I've ever had.
Really?
I chanced it, and on the last afternoon, I popped my head in and I said, "Oh, do you have anything?" And they said, "If you come back in 20 minutes," and it was amazing.
Oh, that's great.
So again, on board, you've got those local hosts and hostesses. They are just absolutely gorgeous. They really love sharing their culture. They're so passionate, but they're just so genuine and authentic. So you feel like you're really part of French Polynesia. You've got the 3 restaurants on board. 2 are open for breakfast and lunch, and they offer that a la carte, and they also offer al fresco dining. And in the evening, the larger restaurant opens for dinner as well. 4 bars are on board the vessel. Again, it's all inclusive. There is entertainment. Again, the Gauguins and the Gauguins, they do an amazing job throughout the day. There's always things. Gosh, my boys were making shell bracelets and learning how to weave and all of this. And every evening there is some sort of show, whether it's that magician, whether it is the local, sort of Polynesian dance groups. There's always something going on. Oh, and bingo. Oh, my gosh. My boys got into bingo. And then after dinner, there's always karaoke in the top bar.
Right.
I mentioned that spa on board. They really deliver a wonderful product. You've got the swimming pool. I think I've mentioned the amazing scuba diving team enough. And it was different to the expeditions I've done with Penant because the excursions were additional and you kind of had to choose them, and it was a bit for me to get my head around. But that's a really good thing. I now see it as such a really good selling point because not everyone's into the same thing, and you don't always have to have excursions booked. So it gives you that flexibility to do what you're interested in, and not do things if it's not your thing. So it's the excursions, definitely. We've got the insight into what excursions you can do in the different on the different islands. Definitely pre-book some of those ones that I reckon are magic days, but give yourself that flexibility and don't overschedule yourself. When it comes to our team, just remember we've got the knowledge, we've got that first-hand experience, and we've got that expertise to help you sell Penant, Pool Gauguin, and to sell these destinations to your clients. So use us, always reach out to us. We're always happy to catch up in person, on the phone. We're on your team. We're part of you, helping matchmake the right voyage, the right destination, the right ship for your client. And hands down, Pool Gauguin is an incredible way to do French Polynesia. No other way to do it. And I'd get back on that boat tomorrow, do exactly the same voyage, have amazing memories, and it would be different. That's the beauty of it. So definitely the way to do it is French Polynesia is with Pool Gauguin, and use our knowledge, use our experience and our expertise.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. I think it might be my next trip as well.
Your kids would love it.